I was standing in the gleaming lobby of Innovatech Solutions, my hands trembling as I clutched a portfolio I had rebuilt in 6 hours when my phone buzzed with a text that would change everything. Mom's message was ice cold. If you went through with that interview, pack your things and get out of my house forever. Another text followed immediately from Dad. Your mother is furious. Don't be stupid. I stared at those words, and for the first time in my 22 years, I felt something break inside me. But before I tell you what happened next, before I tell you how I walked out of that building with a job offer and never looked back, I need you to understand how I got here. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever felt trapped by the people who were supposed to love you, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support means everything, and I promise this story gets better. Much better. Let me take you back to where it all began. To the outside world, we were the perfect suburban Texas family. Carol and Rick Martinez married 30 years, living in a tidy 3-bedroom house with a manicured lawn in a quiet neighborhood outside Houston where everyone knew everyone's business. The house had white shutters, a red door, and flower beds that Carol tended with obsessive precision every Saturday morning. Neighbors would wave and comment on how lovely everything looked, how lucky I was to have such devoted parents. If they only knew what happened when those shutters closed. My mother, Carol, kept a box hidden in her closet behind winter coats we never needed in Texas. I found it when I was 12. Inside were acceptance letters to marketing programs, a navy blue power suit still wrapped in plastic, with tags attached business journals filled with her handwriting. She had wanted to be someone who mattered beyond a 3-bedroom house with a mortgage. Instead, she married at 19 pregnant with my brother David. He died at 6 months old. His room became a shrine. I was born 2 years later, the replacement child who could never replace him. One wine-soaked Tuesday, she told me she'd deferred her marketing program because Rick begged her to. Later never came. Her dreams curdled into resentment she poured over me daily. My father, Rick, believed problems disappeared if ignored long enough. He'd worked the same claims manager position at Reliable Insurance for 18 years, approaching family conflict, like difficult claims deflect, defer, hope someone else handles it. He had kind eyes and a weak spine. His love was conditional on my silence. Stay quiet, make no waves, and he'd pat my shoulder and slip me $20. But ask him to intervene to protect me, to see what was happening, his eyes would go distant, and he'd disappear. I discovered coding at 16 during a free library program. The instructor was Marcus, a burned-out software engineer who took the gig for extra cash but became the first adult to make me feel capable of something meaningful. He taught us Python, showed us how to build simple games, explained that code was just talking to machines in a language they understood. I spent that entire summer in the library, staying until closing time, teaching myself everything I could find. Marcus noticed my dedication and started giving me extra challenges, more advanced tutorials books, he said, I could just borrow indefinitely. By the time school started again, I had built my first real project, a simple inventory management system for the coffee shop down the street from the library. The owner was so impressed, she gave me $50 and told all her small business owner friends about the kid who could build websites. Carol hated it with a viscosity that surprised even me. She would barge into my room at random hours not to check on me but to catch me doing what she called wasting time on that computer garbage. She said I was being foolish, that tech jobs were for naturally gifted people with college degrees and connections, not for girls like me who barely scraped by in algebra and had no prospects. She said I was pretending to be something special when really I was just her mediocre daughter trying on costumes that didn't fit. Carol wasn't entirely wrong about my math skills. I'd struggled in school, needed tutoring for algebra, couldn't do long division without doubt. But coding was different. Marcus told me once, math in school is memorization. Math in coding is creative, problem-solving. Your brain works differently, Maya, not wrong. Carol didn't care about that nuance. To her, my struggles with school math were proof that I was fundamentally inadequate, and my success with coding was just lucky accidents that would eventually run out. Rick's approach was different but equally damaging. He would see me working late into the night on a project and say things like, "That's nice, honey, very dedicated, but have you thought about more realistic options? The community college has a good dental hygiene program." Or, your cousin Jennifer makes decent money as a medical receptionist. Steady work benefits something you could actually do. Every suggestion was wrapped in concern, delivered with a gentle voice, but the message was always the same. Don't reach too high, don't want too much. Accept your limitations and be grateful for whatever scraps the world decides to give you. I learned to hide my ambitions the way other teenagers hid drugs or pregnancy tests. I kept my coding projects secret, worked on them only when I was certain both parents were asleep or out of the house. I got a job at a local coffee shop called The Grindhouse when I was 17, telling my parents I needed work experience, but really I needed money that Carol couldn't control. I opened a bank account at a branch across town that she didn't know about and deposited every paycheck there, keeping just enough cash at home to avoid suspicion. By the time I was 20, I had taught myself Python, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, Basic SQL, and I was working through tutorials on React and Node.js. I had built a portfolio website that I was genuinely proud of, showcasing 10 different projects, ranging from small business websites to a functioning e-commerce platform I'd created as a spec project. I learned basic hardware prototyping using an Arduino kit I bought used on Craigslist, teaching myself to solder components and read circuit diagrams from YouTube videos. My most ambitious project was a smart plant monitoring system I called GreenGuard. It used soil moisture sensors, light sensors, and a temperature probe connected to an Arduino microcontroller that communicated with a mobile app I built. The app would send push notifications when your plants needed water, warn you if they were getting too much or too little light, and track growth patterns over time. It wasn't revolutionary technology. Big agriculture companies had similar systems that cost thousands of dollars, but mine worked. It was functional, and I had built it entirely by myself for under $60 in parts. I kept the GreenGuard prototype in a white box on my desk, disguised to look like a regular storage container for craft supplies. Carol had long since stopped paying attention to the details of my room as long as it stayed clean and I didn't make noise. Everything changed when I turned 22 and found the Innovatech Solutions internship posting. It was late January, and I was scrolling through Indeed on my phone during a slow shift at the Grindhouse when I saw it. The posting specifically said they were looking for non-traditional applicants, self-taught developers who could demonstrate real skill regardless of formal education. The internship paid $22 an hour, which was more than I made at the coffee shop, and it included health insurance and professional development opportunities. The application required 3 technical assessments, a portfolio review, and a final in-person interview for candidates who made it through the initial screening. I applied that night, sitting in my car in the coffee shop parking lot after my shift ended, because I didn't want to risk Carol somehow seeing what I was doing at home. I spent 2 hours on the application, carefully crafting my responses to explain my self-taught journey, my project work, my approach to problem solving. I linked my portfolio website, uploaded my resume, and hit submit before I could second-guess myself into paralysis. 3 days later, I got an email from Jasmine Albright, the talent acquisition manager. Your application stood out among a very competitive pool. We'd like to invite you to complete our first technical assessment. You'll have 48 hours from when you open the link to submit your solutions. The assessment was challenging but fair, focused on practical problem solving rather than abstract computer science theory that I hadn't formally studied. I finished it in 6 hours and submitted it with a confidence I rarely felt about anything. A week later, another email. You scored in the top 15% of all applicants. Please complete the second assessment. This one was harder, requiring me to build a small functional application from scratch based on a set of requirements. I spent an entire weekend on it, barely sleeping, surviving on coffee shop espresso and nervous energy. When I submitted it, I felt like I had either created something impressive or completely embarrassed myself. There was no middle ground. The third email arrived on a Wednesday morning, while I was opening the coffee shop. Congratulations, Maya. Your work has been exceptional. We'd like to invite you to our offices in Austin for a final interview. This is the last step in our process. Below are 3 available dates. Please confirm which works best for you. I had to lock myself in the bathroom and cry for 5 minutes because the wave of validation was so overwhelming I couldn't breathe. Someone saw me. Someone saw my work and thought it was exceptional. Not mediocre, not lucky, exceptional. I scheduled the interview for Tuesday, April 12th at 9 in the morning. That gave me 3 weeks to prepare. I spent every spare moment refining my portfolio, practicing technical interview questions, researching Innovatech's products and company culture. I bought a professional outfit from a thrift store, a navy blazer and gray slacks that made me look like I belonged in a tech company. I practiced my elevator pitch in the mirror until I could deliver it confidently without my voice shaking. I didn't tell Carol and Rick initially. I had learned that sharing my hopes with them was like handing them weapons. But as the interview date approached, I started to believe that maybe this time would be different. Maybe if I framed it right, if I showed them the official email from a real company, if I explained how much this meant to me, they might actually be supportive, or at least neutral. I didn't need their enthusiasm, just their absence of sabotage. I was so stupidly naive. The night before the interview, Monday, April 11th, I was in my room doing final preparations. I had printed out my portfolio materials at the coffee shop using the employee printer, organized everything into a professional leather binder I'd bought with my last paycheck. The binder cost $45 and I debated the purchase for 20 minutes, but I wanted to look prepared and serious. I had arranged my printed materials in a specific order: case studies and project documentation, each page protected by a clear plastic sleeve. I had my outfit hanging on the back of my door, my shoes polished, my interview notes reviewed for the 20th time. The GreenGuard prototype sat in its white box on my desk, and I had decided to bring it to the interview. The application had mentioned the device, and I wanted to demonstrate that I could work across hardware and software. I had tested it that morning to make sure everything still functioned correctly. It was 11 p.m. I was doing one final review of my portfolio, making sure every page was perfect, when Carol opened my bedroom door without knocking. She never knocked. The concept of privacy was something she viewed as a privilege I hadn't earned through mere existence. She stood in the doorway in her bathrobe, a glass of wine in her hand, and looked around my room with that expression I knew too well. The one that meant she was looking for something to criticize, some flaw to pick at, some way to remind me that I wasn't good enough. Her eyes landed on the leather binder on my desk, on the professional outfit hanging on my door, on the printouts and the careful organization. "What's all this?" she asked, her voice already sharp with suspicion. I could have lied. I could have said it was for a school project, even though I hadn't been in school for 2 years. I could have hidden it, minimized it, made it small enough that she wouldn't bother crushing it. But some part of me, the part that was tired of hiding and lying and making myself invisible, decided to tell the truth. "I have a job interview tomorrow morning," I said, trying to keep my voice steady and neutral, "at a tech company in Austin. It's for an internship position." Carol took a long sip of her wine. She stepped further into my room, uninvited, and picked up my binder. She flipped through it slowly, looking at my project descriptions, my case studies, my carefully formatted documentation. Her face twisted into something between disgust and amusement. "Still playing dress-up as a successful businesswoman," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. "You think a few garbage online courses can turn you into something I never could be." The words hit exactly where she intended. This wasn't about me. It had never been about me. This was about Carol's failed dreams, about the business school she never attended, about the career she never built. I was a mirror reflecting back all her what-ifs and might-have-beens, and she needed to shatter that mirror before it showed her something she couldn't stand to see. "This is different, Mom," I said, and I hated how my voice sounded small and pleading. "This is real. I made it through 3 rounds of assessments. They called me exceptional. The interview is at 9 tomorrow morning. It's with Innovatech Solutions. They're a real company with real positions." Rick appeared in the hallway behind Carol, drawn by the sound of our voices. He was in his pajamas, looking tired and annoyed at being disturbed. He leaned against the doorframe and crossed his arms, the universal signal that he wanted this conversation to be over as quickly as possible so he could go back to sleep. "Listen to your mother, Maya," he said, his voice carrying that gentle condescension I had learned to despise. "The grocery store downtown is still hiring for their customer service desk. Sharon from my office has a daughter who works there. She says it's steady work, benefits, a good discount on groceries. That's realistic. That's something you could actually handle." The dismissal in his voice was worse than Carol's outright cruelty because it was wrapped in false concern. He genuinely believed he was helping me, saving me from inevitable disappointment by encouraging me to aim low. "I don't want to work at a grocery store," I said, and my voice was stronger now, edged with frustration. "I want to work in tech. I've been teaching myself for 6 years. I'm good at this, really good. People pay me to build things for them." Carol laughed, a sharp bark of sound that held no humor. "People pay you," she repeated mockingly. "You mean you built a website for that pathetic coffee shop and they gave you $50? That's not a career, Maya. That's a hobby. You're playing pretend, and tomorrow you're going to embarrass yourself in front of actual professionals who will see right through you." "Just this once," I said, and I hated that my eyes were burning with tears I refused to let fall. "Please, Mom. Just this one time. Let me try. That's all I'm asking. Let me try." Carol set down her wine glass on my desk with a heavy thunk. She picked up the white box containing my GreenGuard prototype. She knew what it was. I had been working on it for 3 months, soldering circuits at the kitchen table when she was out testing code late into the night. She had seen it, had asked about it once, and I had made the mistake of explaining it with enthusiasm, showing her how it worked, how the sensors communicated with the app. She held the box now, looking at it with an expression I couldn't quite read. "This is your future," she said quietly, and for a moment I thought she might actually be having a moment of maternal clarity, might actually be about to say something supportive. Then she turned and threw the box against the wall as hard as she could. The white plastic casing shattered on impact. The circuit board inside broke in half with a sick cracking sound. Tiny components, resistors and capacitors and LEDs scattered across my bedroom floor like electronic confetti. The battery pack split open, batteries rolling under my bed. 3 months of work, hundreds of hours of learning and building and testing destroyed in 2 seconds. I stood frozen, unable to process what had just happened. The shock was so complete that I couldn't even react. "Your future is in this house," Carol screamed, her voice rising to a pitch that made Rick flinch in the doorway. "Doing what I tell you to do. You think you're better than me. You think your little toys and your free online courses make you special. You're nothing, Maya. You're my mediocre daughter who will never amount to anything, and the sooner you accept that, the easier your life will be." She grabbed my leather binder off the desk and opened it. Then, maintaining eye contact with me the entire time, she started ripping pages out. She tore through my project documentation, my carefully formatted case studies, my printed code samples. She ripped each page in half, then in quarters, throwing the pieces into the air. Paper rained down around us like snow, each torn fragment, a small death of possibility. I finally found my voice. "Stop," I said, but it came out as barely a whisper. "What was that?" Carol asked, her voice mocking. "I can't hear you, Maya. Speak up." "Oh wait, you can't because you've never had a voice that mattered." She destroyed every page in that binder methodically and thoroughly, while Rick stood in the doorway doing absolutely nothing. When the binder was empty, Carol threw it against the wall where it hit with a dull thud and fell to the floor. But she wasn't finished. She crossed the room in 3 quick steps and grabbed a fistful of my hair at the back of my head. The pain was immediate and sharp, making my scalp burn. She yanked hard enough that I stumbled forward off my desk chair. Before I could catch my balance, she forced me down to my knees on the floor, surrounded by torn paper and broken electronics. Then she pressed my face down toward the mess, her hand on the back of my head, her weight bearing down on me like she was trying to grind my face into the ruins of my dreams. "Look at this," she hissed, her voice right next to my ear. "This is your worth. This is all you'll ever be. Broken garbage that nobody wants. You're going nowhere, Maya. You will never escape me. I made you and I can destroy you just as easily. Do you understand me?" I tried to push back, but she was stronger than me, or maybe I was just too shocked to fight effectively. My cheek pressed against torn paper. I could see a fragment of my project documentation, the words sensor array and data transmission cut off mid-sentence. Rick was still standing in the doorway. Our eyes met for one brief second, and I saw something flicker in his expression. Not quite guilt, not quite concern. More like discomfort at being forced to witness something he'd rather pretend wasn't happening. Then he turned away, walked down the hallway, and I heard his bedroom door close with a soft click. That sound, that quiet closing door, hurt worse than Carol's hands in my hair, worse than the physical pain of being forced to my knees. It was the sound of my father choosing his own comfort over my safety, choosing peace over protection, choosing to abandon me because intervening would be uncomfortable. Carol held me there for another few seconds, making sure I understood my place. Then she released me abruptly and stepped back. I stayed on my knees, surrounded by destruction, not trusting my legs to hold me if I tried to stand. "If you go to that interview tomorrow," Carol said, her voice now cold and controlled, "you can pack your things and get out of my house. Forever. I'm done with your disrespect. I'm done with your delusions. Choose right now, Maya. Give up this fantasy and apologize, or leave and never come back." She picked up her wine glass from my desk, drained it, and walked out of my room. She didn't close the door behind her. She left it open, a power move, forcing me to get up and close it myself if I wanted any privacy. I stayed on the floor for a long time, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 20. Time felt strange and elastic. I could hear my own breathing, harsh and uneven. I could feel the ache in my scalp where she had grabbed my hair. I could see the wreckage of my portfolio scattered around me, the broken circuit board, the shattered plastic housing of my GreenGuard prototype. For those minutes, I let myself feel the full weight of it. The cruelty, the injustice, the bone-deep exhaustion of spending 22 years trying to earn love from someone incapable of giving it. The betrayal of having a father who watched abuse happen and chose to walk away. Then something inside me shifted. It wasn't a dramatic revelation, not a sudden burst of courage or anger. It was quieter than that, more fundamental. I realized with absolute clarity that nothing I did would ever be enough for Carol. No amount of making myself small, no amount of sacrificing my dreams, no amount of apologizing for existing would ever earn her approval. And Rick would never protect me because he had decided long ago that his comfort mattered more than my well-being. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. I photographed the torn portfolio pages scattered across my floor, the broken GreenGuard device, making sure to get a clear shot of the shattered circuit board and the company name I had carefully printed on the housing. I took a selfie that showed the red mark on my neck where Carol's fingers had pressed when she shoved me down. Another selfie showing the area of my scalp that was tender and beginning to show faint bruising. This wasn't self-pity. This was documentation. This was evidence. This was me realizing that sometimes you need proof of the truth because people who haven't lived it won't believe how bad it really was. At 3:15 in the morning, I messaged Liam Chen, a developer I had met 6 months earlier in an online forum for self-taught programmers. We had become genuine friends despite never meeting in person. We would video call while working on projects, help each other debug code, talk about the industry and career goals, and the challenge of breaking into tech without traditional credentials. He lived in Dallas 4 hours away and worked as a junior developer at a startup. I didn't explain what had happened. I didn't want sympathy or emotional support yet. I needed practical help and I needed it fast. I sent him one of the photos of the destroyed materials and typed, "Do you know any 24-hour print shops near the downtown bus station in Austin?" My phone rang within 30 seconds. Video call. When Liam's face appeared on my screen, his expression shifted immediately from concern to something darker when he saw my face. "Maya, what the hell happened?" he asked, his voice tight. "Family disagreement," I said, my voice flat and emotionless, because if I let any feeling in, I would fall apart and I couldn't afford that yet. I need to rebuild my entire portfolio in about 5 hours. Can you help me? Liam stared at me for a long moment. "Is that a bruise on your neck?" "Yes." "Did someone hit you?" My mother grabbed me and shoved me to the floor. "But I'm fine. I need to focus on the interview. I need to fix this." Liam's jaw clenched. "Okay," he said slowly. "Send me every digital file you have, every project, every document, every piece of code. I'll help you reformat everything. We can make it better than the original." And Maya listened to me carefully. "After that interview, don't go home, I'm serious. Come to the downtown bus station, platform X. Text me when you're there. I'll drive down from Dallas and pick you up. You can stay with me and my roommate until you figure things out. But you're not going back there." Agreed. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The kindness in his words from someone who owed me nothing, who had never even met me in person, was almost too much to bear. I spent the next hour uploading files to a shared drive and sending Liam links. He worked on reformatting documents while I started making a list of everything I needed to take with me. I couldn't think beyond the next 12 hours. Interview first, survival second, future third. At 4:30 a.m., when I was certain both Carol and Rick were asleep, I packed my life into 2 duffel bags and a backpack, my laptop and chargers, external hard drives containing backups of all my work, clothes I had bought with my own money, important documents, my birth certificate and social security card that I'd hidden away after turning 18, the few pieces of jewelry that had been gifts from friends rather than from my parents, photos from when I was younger before everything got so bad, the Arduino kit and remaining components, even though my current project was destroyed. I took the emergency cash I had been hiding in a tampon box under my bathroom sink, $217 in various bills. It was everything I had saved beyond what was in my secret bank account money I'd been accumulating for exactly this kind of moment, even though I hadn't admitted to myself that this moment was inevitable. I left behind anything that tied me to them. Gifts from Carol and Rick, clothes they had bought me, a laptop they had given me for high school graduation that I rarely used anymore. I didn't want anything I'd have to feel grateful for. I wanted to owe them nothing. At 4:50 a.m., I picked up what remained of my GreenGuard prototype. The circuit board was broken, but I carefully collected all the pieces I could find and put them in a plastic bag. Then I opened my bedroom door as quietly as possible and walked through the dark house. I stopped in the living room doorway and looked back one time. The house was silent. Peaceful, even. Nobody would guess what happened here a few hours ago. That was always the insidious thing about places like this. They looked so normal from the outside. I pulled the front door closed behind me with a soft click and started walking. The neighborhood was dead silent at 5 a.m. streetlights casting orange pools on empty sidewalks. It was a 2-mile walk to the first bus stop that would take me downtown, and the morning air was cold enough that I could see my breath. I walked fast, partly because of the chill and partly because I was afraid if I slowed down I might lose my nerve and turn back. I didn't look back at the house, not once. The bus arrived at 5:45, nearly empty except for a few early shift workers and one man who looked like he hadn't slept in days. I sat in the back and watched the suburbs fade into the urban landscape of downtown Houston. By 6:15, I was standing outside Quantum Copy, the 24-hour print shop Liam had found for me. The shop was a fluorescent-lit space that smelled like hot toner and burned coffee. There were 3 commercial printers along one wall, several computers available for customer use, and a counter where a man in his 60s sat reading a paperback novel. His name tag said Dave. He looked up when I walked in, and I saw his eyes flick to my face to the mark on my neck that I hadn't tried to cover to the overstuffed bags I was carrying. "Coffee's in the corner," he said, simply gesturing to a small table with a pot of coffee and a stack of styrofoam cups. "Free refills. Take your time, kid. Computer 3 is already on." I wanted to thank him to explain to justify my presence, but he had already returned to his book. It was a small kindness, the gift of not asking questions, and it almost broke me. I set up at Computer 3 and started working. Liam had formatted everything beautifully, had even improved on my original layouts, with better visual hierarchy and clearer section breaks. I sent the files to the printer and watched page after page emerge clean and crisp and professional. While things printed, I drank the terrible coffee and felt my hands slowly stop shaking. By 7:30, I had a new portfolio that was actually better than the destroyed original. I had bought a new binder from the small office supply section at the back of the print shop, this one with a clear front pocket where I inserted a title page with my name and contact information. I organized everything carefully, each page in its own protective sleeve. I couldn't replace the Green Guard prototype, but I had photos of it on my phone. I made a decision. I would print out the best photos and include them in my portfolio with a note explaining the technical specifications. And if anyone asked about the physical device, I would tell a version of the truth that showed resilience rather than victimhood. At 8 a.m., I walked to the public restroom in the bus station next door and did my best to make myself look presentable. I changed into my interview outfit in a stall, trying not to think about how surreal this all was. I bought makeup from a CVS that was just opening cheap concealer and powder that I used to cover the mark on my neck and the faint bruising near my jawline. I couldn't hide the exhaustion in my eyes, but I could at least look professional. By 8:30, I was on a bus, headed to Austin. The interview was at 9 a.m., and according to Google Maps, I would arrive with 10 minutes to spare. I spent the 40-minute bus ride reviewing my technical knowledge, practicing answers to common interview questions, trying to calm the adrenaline that had been coursing through my body for the past 9 hours. I wasn't afraid anymore. Somewhere between Carol's violence and this moment, I had burned through fear and found something harder underneath. Determination, rage, the absolute refusal to let them win. If I failed this interview, it would be because of my actual skills, not because I had been too broken to show up. Innovatech Solutions occupied the 8th through 12th floors of a modern glass building in downtown Austin. The lobby was all steel and glass and possibility, with a receptionist desk made of polished concrete and a wall of monitors showing the company's various products and services. I gave my name to the receptionist, a young woman with bright purple hair and a genuine smile. "Maya Martinez here for a 9 a.m. interview with Dr. Sharma," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. She checked her computer and nodded. "4th floor, conference room B. Take the elevator on the right. Dr. Sharma is expecting you. Good luck." The elevator was glass-walled, offering a view of downtown Austin as it climbed. I watched the city expand below me and felt something loosen in my chest. This was a different world from the one I had left behind 4 hours ago. This was a place where competence mattered more than family politics, where my work could speak louder than Carol's voice in my head telling me I was worthless. Conference room B had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Dr. Anya Sharma was already there reviewing something on her tablet. She was a woman in her mid-50s with silver-streaked black hair pulled back in a sleek bun, wearing a charcoal blazer and an expression of focused intelligence. She looked up when I entered and stood to shake my hand. Her grip was firm, her eye contact direct. "Maya Martinez," she said, "I'm glad you could make it. I've been impressed by your work throughout this process. Please sit." We settled into chairs across from each other. Dr. Sharma pulled up my portfolio website on her tablet. "Your digital work is excellent," she said. "The Green Guard project particularly caught my attention. I noticed in your application materials that you mentioned bringing the physical prototype. I'd love to see it." This was the moment. I could lie. I could make up a technical excuse. Or I could tell a version of the truth that demonstrated the exact qualities they were looking for in a developer. I looked Dr. Sharma directly in the eyes. There was an unexpected incident at my workspace last night, I said, my voice steady and clear. A hardware failure that completely destroyed the physical device. The circuit board was damaged beyond repair, and several critical components were lost. I had to rebuild my entire portfolio from digital backups in approximately 6 hours. I have photographs of the prototype and full technical documentation, but the physical device itself is no longer functional. Dr. Sharma's expression didn't change, but I saw something shift in her eyes. She studied my face for a long moment, and I wondered if she could see past the concealer to the exhaustion and pain underneath. 6 hours, she repeated. You rebuilt your entire portfolio in 6 hours. Yes, ma'am. I had all the original files backed up in multiple locations, which is a practice I maintain for all my work. With remote assistance from a colleague, I was able to reformat, print, and reorganize everything. Obviously, I couldn't recreate the physical hardware in that time frame, but I believe the documentation demonstrates the device's functionality. Dr. Sharma leaned back in her chair. Why didn't you just reschedule the interview? We would have understood. I had prepared for this question, but the answer came from a deeper place than preparation. Because in the tech industry, hardware fails. Servers crash. Deployments go wrong at 3 a.m. Clients need fixes yesterday. If I can't deliver under pressure, if I let setbacks stop me from showing up, then I don't belong here. This was a test of my resilience and problem-solving skills, and I chose to pass it rather than postpone it. Dr. Sharma's lips curved into a small smile. She set down her tablet and leaned forward slightly. Tell me about the rebuild process. Walk me through your decision-making from the moment the device was destroyed to the moment you walked through our doors this morning. For the next 20 minutes, I explained my process. How I had immediately documented everything with photos, how I had reached out to my network for resources, how I had prioritized which materials were essential and which could be recreated or adapted, how I had used cloud backups and version control, how I had made the strategic decision to focus on the portfolio presentation rather than attempting a rushed hardware rebuild that would likely be inferior to the original. Dr. Sharma asked increasingly technical questions about the GreenGuard project itself, about my code architecture, about how I had handled sensor calibration, about the communication protocol between the Arduino and the mobile app. These were questions that couldn't be faked, that required actual understanding of how the system worked. I answered each one clearly and thoroughly, feeling more confident with each response. Then she shifted topics. Tell me about your background, Maya. You're self-taught, correct? No computer science degree. That's correct. I started learning to code 6 years ago, through free online resources, library programs, and a lot of trial and error. I've built projects for local small businesses, worked through online curriculum from MIT, OpenCourseWare, and other sources, and learned primarily by doing. Why tech? What drew you to this field? I paused, considering how honest to be. The safe answer would be something about problem-solving or innovation, but something about Dr. Sharma's direct gaze made me want to tell the truth. I grew up in an environment where nothing made sense, I said carefully, where the rules changed based on someone else's mood, where logic and reason didn't apply. Code was the first thing I encountered where cause and effect were consistent, where if something broke, I could trace back through the logic and find exactly where the error occurred, where my effort directly correlated to results. It was the first thing that felt honest. Dr. Sharma nodded slowly. She picked up her tablet again and made some notes. Then she looked up at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. I'm going to be direct with you, Maya. Your technical skills are solid, better than many candidates with formal degrees. Your portfolio demonstrates creativity and practical problem solving. Your performance on our assessments was in the top 5% of all applicants. But what impressed me most this morning was watching you walk in here after clearly having had a terrible night with a portfolio rebuilt under impossible circumstances, and not only showing up, but showing up prepared and confident. That kind of resilience is rare. She paused, then continued, the tech industry will test you constantly. Projects will fail. Teams will have conflicts. Deadlines will be impossible. Clients will be unreasonable. You'll work with people who don't believe you belong here because you didn't follow the traditional path. If you can handle whatever happened to you last night and still show up ready to perform, then I believe you can handle this industry. She extended her hand across the table. Welcome to Innovatec, Maya. The internship is yours if you want it. I shook her hand, and I didn't trust myself to speak for a moment because the wave of relief and validation was so overwhelming I thought I might cry right there in the conference room. I want it, I finally said. Thank you. You won't regret this. I don't think I will, Dr. Sharma said. You'll receive the formal offer letter by email within 2 hours. The internship starts Monday, April 18th. That gives you 6 days to get yourself situated. The salary is $22 an hour, 40 hours per week, with full health insurance starting day one. We also provide a small relocation assistance stipend for candidates moving to Austin, which I'm guessing applies to you. Yes, ma'am. That would be extremely helpful. Good. Check your email for the full details. And Maya, she added as I stood to leave, we have an employee assistance program that includes counseling services. No questions asked, completely confidential. I'm not saying you need it, but I am saying it's available if you want it. I nodded, not trusting my voice again. She saw what I hadn't said, what I had tried to hide under concealer and professional clothing, and instead of making me explain or justify or prove my worthiness, she simply offered support. The interview lasted 45 minutes total. When I left the building at 9:50 a.m., I stood on the sidewalk in downtown Austin and pulled out my phone. 2 new text messages were waiting for me. The first was from Carol, sent at 8:32 a.m. If you went through with that interview, pack your things and get out of my house forever. The second was from Rick, sent at 8:35 a.m. Your mother is very angry. Don't be stupid. I stared at those messages for a long moment. For 22 years, threats like these would have sent me into a spiral of anxiety and self-doubt. Would have made me scramble to apologize, to make myself smaller, to beg for forgiveness I didn't need. Would have made me question whether I was being selfish or ungrateful or foolish. But standing there on that Austin sidewalk holding a rebuilt portfolio and the promise of a job offer, those messages felt different. They felt like liberation. They had given me explicit permission to never return, and I was going to take it. I took screenshots of both messages, backed them up to 3 different cloud services, and then texted Liam. Interview went well. Really well. I'm not going back. Can you still pick me up? His response was immediate. Already on the road. Be there in 3 hours. Stay somewhere public. Proud of you. I had 3 hours to kill in a city I barely knew. I found a library branch a few blocks away and spent the time researching tenant rights in Texas, looking up information about restraining orders, reading articles about how to build credit and establish financial independence. I made lists, things I needed to do immediately, things I needed to do within the first week, things I needed to figure out eventually. At 12:45 p.m., the email arrived from Innovatech Solutions. The formal offer letter with salary details, benefits information, start date, and a PDF document outlining the internship program structure. There was also information about the relocation stipend, $500, to help with moving costs and initial setup. It wasn't a fortune, but combined with my savings, it was enough to give me options. I sat in that library and cried quietly for about 5 minutes, letting out all the fear and pain and relief I had been holding back since 3 a.m. An older librarian noticed and silently brought me a box of tissues, setting them on my table without comment. Another small kindness from a stranger that meant more than they could possibly know. At 2 p.m., I walked to the downtown bus station Platform X, as Liam had specified. I bought a coffee from a stand and sat on a bench with my bags, watching people come and go. Business people with rolling luggage, college students with backpacks, families with small children. Everyone moving through this space with purpose and destination. Liam's beat-up Honda Civic pulled up at 2:17 p.m. He got out of the car and I saw him properly for the first time. He was shorter than I expected, maybe 5'7", with black hair that looked like it had been cut by a friend rather than a professional. He wore a faded t-shirt with a coding joke on it and jeans with a hole in one knee. He looked tired from the 4-hour drive, but his smile was genuine. He walked up to me and without saying anything pulled me into a hug. I let myself lean into it for a moment, let myself accept the comfort, and then I pulled back because I couldn't afford to fall apart yet. You look like hell, he said gently. I feel like hell, but I got the job. His face lit up. Seriously, they offered it. Verbal offer this morning, formal letter about an hour ago. I start next Monday. Maya, that's amazing. Come on, let's get out of here. Josh is making dinner and you need to eat and sleep and probably shower, no offense. None taken. I've been wearing the same clothes for 12 hours. The drive to Dallas was quieter than I expected. Liam didn't push me to talk about what had happened, didn't ask invasive questions, just put on music and let me process in silence. Occasionally, he would point out landmarks or make casual comments about traffic, giving me space to exist without performance. His apartment was a 2-bedroom place in a complex that had seen better days but was clean and reasonably maintained. His roommate Josh turned out to be a large, friendly guy who worked in IT support and played video games competitively. He greeted me with a firm handshake and showed me the couch that would be mine for as long as I needed it, already made up with clean sheets and a pillow. "No questions, no judgment," Josh said. "You're Liam's friend, which makes you cool with me. There's leftovers in the fridge, bathroom is down the hall, Wi-Fi password is on the router. Make yourself at home." That night, I slept for 11 hours straight, the deepest sleep I'd had in years. When I woke up the next morning, Wednesday, April 13th, I had 17 missed calls from various numbers. My personal phone number wasn't exactly secret. Carol had given it to relatives, family, friends, people from church. I listened to one voicemail. It was from my Aunt Teresa, Carol's older sister. "Maya, honey, your mother is beside herself. She says you've run away, that you're being disrespectful and ungrateful. Please call her back. Whatever happened, I'm sure we can work it out as a family. She's your mother. She loves you." I deleted the voicemail without listening to the others. I blocked Aunt Teresa's number. Then I started systematically blocking every number that had called except for a handful of friends who had nothing to do with my parents. Over the next 3 days, I built the framework for my new life with methodical precision. On Wednesday, I opened a new bank account at a completely different bank from the one my parents used, transferred all my money from my old account, and closed the old one. I bought a new phone with a new number and only gave that number to people I trusted. I researched apartments in Austin, looking for the cheapest option that was still safe and close to public transportation. On Thursday, I contacted the Student Legal Aid Program at the University of Texas at Dallas. Even though I wasn't a student, they had a program for young adults dealing with family law issues. A law student named Rebecca Chen took my case pro bono as part of her practicum. I showed her the photos I had taken, the threatening text messages, the documentation of years of emotional and financial control. She listened without judgment and then explained my options. "We can file for a protective order," she said. "Given the documented physical assault and the threatening messages, I think we have a strong case. It won't be a permanent restraining order immediately, but we can get a temporary one that lasts 60 days, which gives you breathing room." "What does that mean practically?" I asked. "It means they can't contact you directly, can't come to your home or workplace, and have to stay a certain distance away from you. If they violate it, they can be arrested. It also creates a legal record that this relationship is unsafe, which can be helpful if they try to cause problems for you later." "Let's do it," I said. "I'm done being afraid of them." Rebecca filed the paperwork on Friday afternoon. On Saturday morning, April 16th, the police served Carol and Rick Martinez with a temporary protective order at their home at 8:30 a.m., right when they would usually be having breakfast before Rick's Saturday golf game. I wasn't there, obviously, but I heard about it later from a neighbor's daughter I had been friends with in high school. She texted me, "Oh my God, Maya, police were at your house this morning. Your mom came out screaming at them. Everyone on the street was watching. What happened?" I didn't respond to that text. Let them wonder. Let the neighbors talk. Let Carol experience public embarrassment for once instead of private cruelty. That same day, I received a call from a blocked number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. It was a woman's voice I didn't recognize. "Is this Maya Martinez?" "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Jennifer Hartley. I'm a licensed therapist, and your mother Carol asked me to call you. She's very concerned about you and hopes we can facilitate a family mediation session." I felt my jaw clench. "Did my mother tell you why I left?" "She said there was a misunderstanding, that you had a disagreement and things escalated, but that she's willing to work through it if you'll just come home and talk." I took a deep breath. "Miss Hartley, did my mother mention that she physically assaulted me, destroyed my professional materials the night before a crucial job interview, and then threatened to kick me out if I went to that interview? Did she mention that I have photos of the injuries and the property damage? Did she mention that there's now a protective order against her because of documented abuse?" There was a long pause. "No," she said quietly. "She did not mention those things. I'm not interested in mediation with someone who hurt me and shows no remorse. If my mother wants to address her behavior, she can do that with her own therapist. I'm not participating in a process designed to manipulate me into returning to an abusive situation. Please don't call this number again." I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from anger, from the audacity of Carol trying to weaponize therapy as another tool of control. Sunday, April 17th, the day before my internship started, Liam drove me to Austin to look at apartments. I had found a studio listing online, $450 a month, in a complex that was older but well-maintained and only 2 miles from the Innovatic office. The landlord, an elderly woman named Mrs. Rodriguez, met us there. The studio was tiny, maybe 300 square feet with a kitchenette, a bathroom, and just enough space for a bed and a desk. But it had good light, it was clean, and it was mine. Mrs. Rodriguez looked at my application, noting that I had no rental history and limited credit. "You're very young," she said. "Do you have a cosigner?" "No, ma'am, but I have a job offer letter from Innovatic Solutions starting tomorrow, and I can pay first month, last month, and security deposit up front." She studied me for a moment. "You running from something, Mija?" "Yes, ma'am, but I'm running toward something better." She nodded slowly, like this was an answer she understood. "Okay. I'll need to verify your employment, but if it checks out, we can have you in by Wednesday. Keep this place clean, pay your rent on time, and we won't have any problems." "Thank you," I said, and I meant it with my whole heart. Monday, April 18th, I started my internship at Innovatech Solutions. Dr. Sharma personally gave me the office tour and introduced me to the development team I'd be working with. They were a mix of ages and backgrounds, from fresh college graduates to industry veterans, and they welcomed me without the skepticism I had feared. My lack of a formal degree wasn't an issue here. My work spoke for itself. The first week was intense, drinking from a fire hose of new information, learning the company's development processes, getting up to speed on their code base. But it was the good kind of intense, the kind where I went home exhausted but satisfied, where I was learning things that mattered, where I felt valued. On Wednesday, I moved into my studio apartment with Liam and Josh's help. My furniture was minimal: a mattress on the floor, a cheap desk from IKEA, a folding chair. But it was mine, purchased with money I had earned in a space where nobody could hurt me. The weeks blurred together in a rhythm of work, learning, and slow healing. I was good at my job, good enough that after 3 weeks, Dr. Sharma assigned me to a significant project, a user authentication system overhaul that would affect the entire product suite. I worked alongside senior developers who treated me like a colleague, rather than an intern who valued my input and taught me their expertise generously. About 6 weeks in, I started receiving messages again. Not from Carol or Rick directly that would violate the protective order, but from relatives and family friends acting as proxies. Always the same themes. "Your mother is heartbroken. You're tearing the family apart. She just wants to talk. Don't you think you're being a bit dramatic? She's your mother, she loves you." The words might have worked on the old Maya, the one who believed that love was supposed to hurt, that family obligation trumped personal safety, that speaking up about abuse was more shameful than experiencing it. But that Maya had died on the floor of her bedroom, surrounded by torn paper and broken dreams. The new Maya knew better. I responded to one of these messages just once, to my Uncle David, who had always seemed kind. I wrote, "The only thing I destroyed was her control over me. If she's heartbroken, it's because she lost her target, not because she lost her daughter. I hope she finds professional help. But I'm done being her emotional punching bag, and I'm done explaining that to people who think abuse is acceptable as long as it happens in private. Don't contact me about this again." He didn't respond. Neither did anyone else after that. The message got around. The temporary protective order was set to expire after 60 days. Rebecca Chen, my legal aid attorney, called me to discuss options. "Do you want to pursue a permanent order?" she asked. I thought about it. "No," I said finally. "I don't think I need it. They haven't actually tried to contact me directly, and I think they've gotten the message. I just want them to leave me alone, and it seems like they are." "Okay, but keep all your documentation," Rebecca advised. "If anything changes, we can refile immediately." The protective order expired on June 15th. Nothing happened. No calls, no attempts at contact, no showing up at my apartment. Just silence, which was its own kind of gift. Meanwhile, my work at Innovatech continued to exceed expectations. The authentication system project I'd been assigned was successful enough that Dr. Sharma mentioned it in a company-wide meeting, specifically crediting my contributions. In June, halfway through what was supposed to be a 6-month internship, Dr. Sharma called me into her office. "Maya, your work has been exceptional," she said without preamble. "The team speaks highly of you. Your code quality is consistently strong, and you've demonstrated the kind of growth mindset we value here. I'd like to offer you a full-time position as a junior software engineer, effective immediately. The salary is $68,000 annually with full benefits. What do you think?" "I think I need a minute to process that. I'm not dreaming," I said, and she laughed. "You earned this," she said. "Don't doubt that." I signed the offer letter that afternoon. At 22 years old, with no college degree, I was making more money than Rick had made as a middle manager with 18 years of experience. I could afford a better apartment if I wanted, could buy furniture that wasn't from thrift stores, could actually save money for the future. But more than the money I had, something I had never had before: respect. People at Innovatech valued my opinions, listened to my ideas, treated me like I mattered. It was intoxicating and terrifying and healing all at once. In late July, about 3.5 months after I had left, I received a letter. Not an email, an actual physical letter forwarded to me from Mrs. Rodriguez, because it had been sent to my apartment address, which meant someone had gone to considerable effort to find me. The return address was my parents' house. The handwriting on the envelope was Rick's. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity won out. I opened it carefully, ready to stop reading if it was manipulation or guilt tripping. The letter was short. Maya, your mother and I have been attending family counseling, as suggested by our therapist. We are working on understanding the harm that was done and taking responsibility for our actions. I am writing this letter not to ask you to come back or to forgive us, but to say that I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't protect you. I'm sorry I chose my own comfort over your safety every single time it mattered. I'm sorry I taught you that love means accepting cruelty and that speaking up is worse than staying silent. I was a coward and you paid the price for my cowardice. Your mother is also working through her issues, though. That's her story to tell if she ever gets the chance. I don't know if you'll ever want contact with us again. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't, but I wanted you to know that we see now what we couldn't or wouldn't see before. I'm proud of you for leaving. I'm proud of you for choosing yourself. That took more courage than I've ever had. I hope you're well wherever you are. Dad. I read that letter 3 times, looking for the manipulation, the hidden guilt trip, the expectation of response. But it seemed sincere, or as sincere as Rick had ever been about anything difficult. I put the letter in a drawer and didn't respond. Maybe someday I would. Maybe someday I'd be ready to have a conversation about boundaries and conditional reconciliation. But not yet. Not when I was still building myself into the person I wanted to be, still learning what healthy relationships looked like, still figuring out who Maya Martinez was, when she wasn't shaped by Carol's cruelty and Rick's cowardice. 6 months after I started at Innovatech in October, I was asked to give a major technical presentation to the engineering leadership team. It was about a new feature proposal I had developed, a significant improvement to how our platform handled data synchronization across devices. Dr. Sharma sat in the front row along with the CTO, the VP of Engineering, and several senior architects. I walked them through my proposal with confidence I had earned through months of hard work and respect. I fielded challenging technical questions. I defended my design decisions. I acknowledged the weaknesses in my approach and explained my mitigation strategies. When I finished, the VP of Engineering nodded approvingly. This is solid work, Maya. Let's move forward with a proof of concept. Can you lead the implementation? Absolutely, I said. After the meeting, Dr. Sharma pulled me aside. I told you that first day that you had the resilience to succeed in this industry, she said. You're proving me right. I just showed up and did the work, I said. She smiled. That's exactly what resilience looks like. That evening, I went up to the 5th floor balcony of the Innovatech, building a space I had discovered where people went to take calls or just breathe for a moment away from their desks. I looked out over Austin at the lights beginning to sparkle as evening settled over the city. My city now, my life now. My phone rang. Unknown number. I knew immediately it was one of them, probably using someone else's phone to get around my blocks, testing whether the protective order's expiration meant I was accessible again. I stared at that screen for a long moment, then I declined the call, powered off my phone completely, and just stood there in the cooling October air breathing. The fire inside me hadn't been extinguished when Carol tried to drown it in violence and control. It had been reborn from those ashes, burning brighter and hotter than she could ever have imagined. The future wasn't just open to me, it belonged to me, and I had built it myself, line by line, choice by choice, day by day. Standing on that balcony 6 months into my freedom, I finally understood something fundamental. Leaving wasn't running away. It was running toward the life I deserved. Toward respect and safety and the radical concept that I mattered. Toward a version of myself that Carol had tried to destroy but couldn't, because she had never understood that you can't kill something you never created in the first place. I was never going back. And more importantly, I was never going to be that small, scared girl again. I had rebuilt myself just like I rebuilt that portfolio, carefully and methodically, piece by piece, into something stronger than before. The cage had seemed so solid when I was inside it, but from out here I could see the truth. It was never as strong as they made it seem. The key had been inside me all along. I just had to be desperate enough and brave enough to use it. Your worth is not defined by the people who tried to diminish you. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from those who taught you to believe you deserved less than everything. If you've ever felt trapped, if you've ever been told your dreams are worthless, I want you to know this. The cage is never as strong as they make it seem. The key was inside you all along. Have you ever had to make the choice between staying safe in toxicity or risking everything for freedom? What would you have done in my position? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button if this story spoke to you, and subscribe, because we all need reminders that we're stronger than we think. Your story matters, your freedom matters, and you are worth fighting for.